Well, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're getting there towards the end of the conference, and what I hope all of you have found. I know I have. It's been a fantastic 3 days. I'm coming away with lots of takeaways, new faces, new connections, and I'm sure this won't be the last time that we'll see Charleston in Asia. So from Clarivate's perspective, we just wanted to say thank you all for coming, and hope to see you all again soon. So this afternoon's session is Shaping Student Engagement in a Changing World. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background as to why we wanted to have this conversation. So I'll introduce myself. I am Tash Edmonds, and I lead our books and data products in the Content Solutions business unit in Clarivate. And today I am joined by Michael Gonzalez and Lily Coe. They'll introduce themselves and explain a little bit more about their roles in a couple of minutes, but I wanted just to give you a bit of a background as to why we felt this discussion was needed and is really, really timely. So just a show of hands, how many of you in the room have read the Future Jobs report that was posted in 2025? Okay, so one or two. Great. Well, I'm not going to go through all 350 pages of it, but I am going to give you some top-line summary. So essentially, this report was commissioned by the World Economic Forum. It surveyed over 1,000 leading global employees, and it was to really get a taste, a temperature of where they felt the jobs market was going. So they looked at it in a 5-year forecast, and the main takeaways were really where that digital transformation is going to be. But what they also did was they pulled out what they called 5 really key drivers for change in the workforce, and not surprisingly, technological change was really, really at the forefront. So any jobs that are going to require enhanced and developing digital skills were really kind of dominating the survey. But also there were some other geopolitical, socioeconomic, kind of reasonings as well. So the green transition, so any jobs around, green economy, sustainability, the need to reduce our carbon footprint as well are really going to dominate, the next 5 years when it comes to careers. Geopolitical fragmentation. So essentially, how countries are getting on, or maybe not, and those tensions and what that's doing to the global economy, and then filtering down into the workforce, and then in terms of what are the populations, what's happening, we are seeing in especially high earning regions of the world declining populations. We're seeing. In my place in the UK, decreasing 18-year-olds going to university, and again that's having a knock-on effect into the career world. So when the report then delved into core skills that are going to be needed, no surprise, technology and AI, are going to have the biggest impact. Over 80%, 83% of businesses are going to be transformed by AI, and it's going to be at the centre of it. But what was really, really interesting was that it wasn't just about being an agent or use of AI. There were other, what sometimes gets referred to as softer skills, that are going to be needed: resilience, critical thinking, systems thinking. So it's not just that AI is going to replace jobs. It was the ability and the need to have skills to work with AI, to interrogate it, to really stress test it, question more, ask more, and then embed that into the evolving workplace. I was then reminded of the 2024 IFLA Trend report. And that kind of, as librarians tend to do, we forecast and we kind of try and predict what's going to happen. And that report really did touch on the evolving skill sets that students were going to need, and that libraries were really going to be at the forefront of helping them navigate that evolution of skills. And that's why, in conversation, we saw the report, we were thinking about the report, and it spun off a discussion that we felt was really, really sort of needed. So That's the introduction, the basis and rationale, and we're now going to move over to the panel. So, Michael, would you like to just give a brief introduction of who you are and a little bit about your role?
My name's Michael Gonzalez. I'm the University Librarian at the University of Technology, Sydney. It's a university in the middle of Sydney, in the middle of the city. We're kind of known for not having a campus. We're a bunch of buildings in the middle of nowhere. We're in the middle of a major city. Probably the worst person to talk about careers. I'm here despite my own incompetence, but here I go. But yes, I'm in charge of, so as well as being in charge of the library, I'm in charge of all sort of informal learning across the campus, which is interesting, and that involves provision of services like careers and things where we have to embed them in and make them a little bit more ambient. So I kind of have quite a lot to do with the people who run these things.
And Lily?
Hello, everyone. I am Lily Ko, Head of Research and Learning Support at the Chinese University of Hong Kong Library. We call it CHK. And I oversee a range of library services that support teaching, learning, and research. My main responsibilities include leading digital literacy education, advancing the use of educational technologies to enhance learning experience and promote academic integrity.
Thanks both. So,
sorry, I'm the secretary of the Academic and Research Libraries sections of IVLA.
Thank you. So, thinking about your institutions and some of the the statistics and the summary of what we heard from the jobs report, thinking about career preparation. Is this a primary focus in terms of student outcomes at your institution? And do any of those core skills and trends that I pulled out of the report, do they align with what you're seeing? Michael, do you want to go first?
Yes. Interestingly enough, one of the remits I sit for is digital skills and not literacy, which is really interesting. So we've made a differentiation between the two. And one of the things that we're definitely seeing when it comes to employability and trends is basically the mass automation of what we call a new graduate. So basically, and some of the disciplines actually finding it that a lot of what they would do, particularly like law is a good example, where basically a first-year law intern can be replaced with an algorithm because all they do is look for precedents, right? So, and develop like a case for someone to look at. So it's interesting how it's a good example because it's that shift has gone back to, well, what does good research look like? What does critical thinking look like? And that's sort of now falling back onto the library. So in some ways, there's kind of a resurgence of a need for the library, which is kind of weird. So, more and more we're being asked, actually, we need graduates that can both research, do the critical thinking, can access mass content and really make a actual critical decision of what's actually useful, but also use AI and do that. So get a response and research what that response is. So it's really interesting because there's like a resurgence in that now, in terms of what the sort of graduates you want. And it was interesting you mentioned all the other bits about, environmental and social justice, because that's how some of the disciplines are reshaping themselves. So for example, law is another good example because they've gone and reshaped the whole law faculty around a focus of responsible use of AI. So our graduates learn about law in that context. So we're finding a lot of the disciplines are reshaping around how people can use AI in a professional context. So it's been really interesting.
And Lily, any of your experiences you'd like to share?
Let me spend a little bit of time to introduce my institution, that is CHK. It's a comprehensive research university established in 1963, so we have 60-something years old. And then our mission is to combine tradition with modality and also to bridge China and the West. So because of this background, that's how we position ourselves to provide career development training. And the number of students is around 23,000. So to us, besides we have 8 faculty that is for academic, to take care of academic areas. We also have 9 colleges that will take care of the students' personal growth and also the college life, the campus life. In this context, so our universities focus on the whole person development. And also, we also have every undergraduate student, year one student, has to take the physical education course, that is swimming or basketball, handball, etc. That's why our institution aims to nurture future leaders and prepare them to tackle the challenges of future. So to come back to the report, we know that the skills is important. So 2 years ago, we rolled out the digital literacy and computational thinking course for all year one undergraduate students. They have to take each semester, they have to take one. And this year, maybe next year, then we will add more AI literacy to them. But this is for undergraduate, because for postgraduates, we do not have any formal training. Then maybe next 2 years, we will add the formal AI literacy course to all postgraduate students. One more new initiative, we call it Co-App at CHK. That is the undergraduate students will have full-time, full pay, full credit placement for 6 and 8 months to make them job ready for the employers. That is what we have now.
Brilliant, thank you. And it sounds as though the library is quite central to a lot of the activity that's taking place there. And so delving a little bit deeper into the library, let's look at resources and collections. So how are you developing your collections? How are you seeing them evolve as you're trying to support students prepare for the job market? So could you talk a little bit about the ways that you're designing your collections and how you're working with changing faculty priorities?
I go first. Our library currently, we have the career development collections. So we partnered with the Office of Student Affairs, because the Office of Student Affairs take care of the university levels, job finding and career development of students. So we partner with them to acquire or design our career development collections. We also work closely with faculty members, because our library, we think that digital literacy and AI literacy are important, and we pack them together. So we try to develop these kind of materials with them, and we think that these are the skills the students need in the future. And also we have some activities, for example, data hack, that is 48 hours students competition. And in that competitions, they might need some resources, because we also collaborate with different teachers in their departments. They will let us know what they want. So we build in that way also. And this year, our university has an in-house AI interview platform. It's called Tell Us. So we invite them and to give us a career talk, and students can try the AI interview, the platform. So we also listen to the students' voice. Each year we have the VR games voting activity. So students can choose what not AI, VR games, the virtual reality games. We have a VR cave. So what VR games they want, then we will buy them to let them play for that. That is so far the way we try to interact with our stakeholders to build our collections related to career development.
Cool, that's a very sophisticated answer. So I guess talking, from my context, one of the things that I guess has caused us, with the explosion of all things AI and all sorts of other things, is to really be really clear about what the library does and doesn't do. So we really had to sort of say, actually, the collections money is for collections, and we develop a collection for a reason. It doesn't say we don't do different things with collections, but we don't buy AI. We actually consider that software as an example. So that's an IT cost, and we facilitate that. And to some degree we support it. But interestingly enough, there's other things that are coming up from a workplace context, and there's all that well-being, that actually there's a huge explosion around well-being and mental health and all of those sorts of things. That's sort of becoming a bit of a priority in terms of having materials that would support sort of students not being stuck and, you know, studying and doing other things. So there's a whole load of programming as well that comes into it. One of the other things, I guess, from not really collections related, but sort of tangentially into the services side of things, is that we actually do a lot of, we run a Students as Partners program. So we pay students to run a project for a year, and they have to partner with someone in the institution. Actually, the careers area is one of the biggest partnerships that we do. And interestingly, that for the last 3 years that there's been a careers kind of focus on it. It generally is around picking a career path, but also finding resources that can help you get to where you want to be. So there's been a lot of insights in that kind of program that we're getting from the students. So, and they just get mentored and deliver a project, and then it becomes part of what we have to manage.
Yeah. I think the trend around the well-being as well, and combining that with, I think sometimes is overlooked, but over the last 18 to 24 months, it's a trend that we see in terms of collection development. And speaking of trends, are there, you know, one or two trends that you've started to see in terms of emerging content types or changing audiences, or potentially new partners that you're working with now that maybe previously you weren't?
I'll go. Audience is really interesting because since, I guess, the COVID and online explosion, we deal a lot more with what we call learning designers, so people who actually build the interactive content. So they've become a key audience for us. So while we deal with professors and students, we actually spend a lot of time now working with these people that build all the activities and sorts of things and assessments and stuff to make sure that there's content that's embedded. So in some ways it's sort of shifted the role of the library away from the support side of things into the development side of things. So we do a lot of work with course development, course proposals, to sort of capture the sorts of things that we have to do. In terms of emerging content, every publisher, every person who deals with content has put out some AI thing, and there's an expectation that I pay for it. So that is one of the emerging content, and you know, it's having very interesting discussions with faculties around, well, pick one. Like, you can't have it all. And you know, health is a really good example for us, because they could have everything, because they're trying, you know, the health industry is constantly trying to automate, and the demands on us are quite huge and expensive. So that's been an interesting one, where there's an expectation the library does it, even though I have no funding. Publishing is another big one that, you know, we're now expected to pay for publishing. And I think all libraries have that problem. So again, and I go back to that point, which is what that just allowed us to do is really clear about what librarians do and what librarians manage. And the rest of it really is up to other people or university to work out where they want that to sit.
Lily?
Thank you. And I add that is to us the trend of regarding the content types. One of the popular is API. We also receive requests to buy API, and also the Web of Science APIs. It's the most popular APIs. They want the students want to use, because we have subscribed to the API, but we do it for another projects. So this is one of the popular type we have. Might be different from Michael, because Michael mentioned that your library do not buy AI things, but we sometimes buy AI tokens. But the AI tokens is not for every students. When we have the student projects or have the student competition, we will support them with the AI tokens. Usually we will partner with our campus information computer center, and then to acquire this kind of resources. Yeah, that's what I want to add.
So you've both given a wide variety of examples, and Lily, I love the idea of that 48-hour hackathon. It just sounds amazing. But so how are the students actually engaging with these resources? You know, are you seeing anything that's surprising you?
Let me answer what surprised surprised me most first. I think the most surprising me is when we talk to students, the students think, your library has AI materials. We don't think, when they think about want to use AI or AI tools or AI something, they do not associate they can use it in the libraries. This is, and sometimes they will let us know, then why don't you put it in a permanent place? For example, on your website, I didn't find anything, etc. One example is when we subscribe to the Web of Science research assistant. And to me, I just think that when they go into the Web of Science, of course, they found the research assistant, they can use it. But when we check with them, it's not the case. They just didn't know that. If they knew that, they will use them, I'm sure. But how to let them know is what my colleagues and I have to do more, I think. And the other way is how they use them. I personally think to get the usage statistics is not difficult. We just get them and know them. But how the user behavior change or the patterns we can identify, it takes time. So maybe this year we will conduct a survey to have a look what happened then.
User behavior is interesting. So there's a few things in this. We actually work a lot with students. Our library has its own user experience department, so everything is researched with them. So there's a huge amount of anxiety that students have around being career ready and having the right skills. So this AI thing is as much of something that they use to, see what the child of Ariel and Aladdin might look like, wild. But also they want to understand how to use it all in a professional context. So there's that kind of emerging kind of use around trying to work out what's right for me. The use of AI is interesting because there's still, I guess it's one of those things where students are pushed in a certain way, and Australians are very reading list compliant because we have like a compliance mandate around reading lists with copyright. So every university in Australia manages a reading list system of some kind. Every subject will have an electronic reading list. So students are still kind of held to what they're given a lot of the times to do their coursework. In terms of how they use AI, it's funny because we have all of the research assistant-y, all sorts of things, and you kind of see usage explode and then plateau. So it's kind of like they understand the use of it. And the work that we've done around user experience tells us that they kind of get a sense really quickly about what it can and can't do. And they'll only access these things when they know what they want to get it to do. So it's really interesting. They have very high expectations not being met by a lot of the technology and then reverting to what they've been given. So that's the kind of behavior that we see in all of this. So they're just like, well, I don't know. It's a big world. I don't understand. I'm just going to use a reading list. That'll get me by. I'll pass. So it's really, and I always say that students are not necessarily like digitally innovative. They're just digitally resilient. So they will try everything and then try and get an answer, whereby most of us will just give up. So it's really interesting in terms of that user behavior. And the other thing that we found in all the user behavior stuff is they know why they come to a library. So we thought that was interesting. They generally want to talk to someone. They're like, if we had all the trouble of going there, we don't want to talk to a robot, which is really fascinating because it's the same thing I would do. If I bother to go to the bank, I want to talk to someone, not a robot. I haven't been to a bank in years, but, so it's interesting.
And I think it's where the whole well-being, discussion comes into it as well, because we hear a lot. There are reports out there about students feeling a sense of loneliness, isolation, especially when they're studying abroad, away from families, or have different priorities. And again, that idea of being scared, not knowing what they can and can't do with AI. But from our point of view, from a Clarivate side, we do see high levels of engagement when they find the tool and when they're in there using the full text. So, but definitely some hesitation around, am I allowed to be doing this? So I think framing it under the umbrella of a library resource that is credible and authenticated gives them that sense of reassurance.
It's just something really interesting on that. And I remember, and there's a really wild story about this, which is I was at a conference and they're like, oh, and you don't know, you can access the Primo AI thing now if you want to. and I just sat there and pressed the button and turned it on. And I think I might have been one of the first people to do that, because I'm like, oh, let's just turn it on and see how it goes. It was wild. Like, people lost their minds. But because they didn't realise if they couldn't do it. And actually, we had to turn it off, because what we realised is the university hadn't formed a position on it. And all our misconduct and everything still said, you cannot use machines to produce content. So it became a case of the library being a trusted place. So if the library does this and allows it, then why am I getting in trouble? So it was a really interesting kind of trial by error kind of thing. I didn't get in too much trouble, to be fair. But it was just an interesting thing around needing to have policy alignment. So we'd done all the work in promoting and saying these things are coming, but it was the infrastructure, the policy, and ultimately saying what the library does is trusted. So actually we've come out months later and we actually do go out and say we are the trusted place for doing this. So, and we are the one place that can give you support on it, and we only do certain systems. So we don't support everything. We're very clear about what we do and don't do around this space.
Yeah, but it's about setting those expectations, and I mean that's a great example that you just used in terms of being in step and aligning with your institution policies. But do you have any other examples that you can share around how you've embedded AI or other emerging technologies into your library, either from a service delivery or resource?
Okay, I go first. I basically focus on teaching and learning. On how to support student success. So actually, we have we start the digital scholarship service and Makerspace a few years ago. Then for the AI one, we start maybe 2 years ago altogether. And we position ourselves, because some faculty, for example, engineering, they go very fast for the AI. The students have advanced AI skills. So we position ourselves as an interdisciplinary collaboration venue. So those students, they do not have any opportunity to learn these skills. They can come to the library to learn it. And to echo the data hack, that we have the 48 hours student competition for data literacy, literacy skills. And also these 2 years, a lot of students using AI skills for their data analysis. So this year we will have one of our teachers will teach vibe coding. So we know that the vibe coding in the engineering may be some of the formal programs that already teach it. But for example, humanities, arts, they don't have this chance. So we put it into our program. And also from data to dashboards is how to use AI tools to do the data analytics and deploy them to the cloud. So this is, I personally find it's very interesting, and I will attend these sessions also because I come from a non-tech background. So I put my shoes on the students, and it will be really, really interesting to me.
That's interesting. There's 2 things. In terms of services and things, one of the things we did with AI, which is really interesting, was when we did the Primo Search AI thing, the university actually consciously said for those academics that couldn't get AI and start teaching it, that was the easiest way to do something, is actually that is an AI that's supported, go to the library if you had to take your first step. So we actually picked up most of the academics working with it, the research assistant, because it was seen to be the stepping stone into this world that could be quite scary. Just piggybacking off what you said, and because I don't like being told what not to do, I wanted to make a space and I wasn't allowed to have one. But then I was like, well, what could we do? And one of the interesting things that we do, and it's actually completely oversubscribed always, is we actually do these tours, we call them campus tours, and they're aligned to like alternative careers. So becoming an influencer. So what we do is we actually take the students to all the facilities around campus that would allow them to, there's like a studio, there's a dance hall, there's a room full of mirrors, a big green room, all the things that would look really good. And the students curate these themselves. So we actually contacted students who had high Instagram things. So it's part of our student engagement stuff. And then they actually curate the things on campus that you could use to do it. We do one around podcasting. We do one around 3D printing and being an entrepreneur and those sorts of things. So one of the things that our student engagement stuff do is cater for the alternative stuff that isn't taught in a classroom. And as much as we would have loved to have had a makerspace, we just think that the whole university is our makerspace now. So we just show them all the different things that they can use and do, and we just facilitate those tours, and they're completely oversubscribed. And it was one of those projects that came out of these students as partners projects that we had, which was, if you don't have the things, how could you create the same experience using everything else?
So it sounds like you've had to get really creative there, you know, given the resources or the space or not the space to kind of do these initiatives. So you've mentioned a few times, both of you, around, you know, the expectation, you know, and if it's a library trusted resource, then it kind of gets the green light. But, you know, there's talking about those expectations and, you know, is the library expected to be leading on these initiatives and, you know, doing the training? And how do you feel about that? And how do you feel that that's impacting, you know, your roles and your work?
I think from what we did, I think we already think that we should provide the AI trainings or the AI literacy or the use on AI tools. But sometimes I think because what is our role, the library's role, and what is the our university's information technology service role. So we have to discuss with them how to do that. And from my experience, I'm really excited and want to take a more proactive role to let more faculty members or students know that we can help them, especially the responsible use and ethical use of AI.
This is expectations question. There's so much that's expected of the library. One of the interesting things is that I always say libraries are great change managers. Like, we wouldn't have lasted hundreds of years as a profession if we didn't know how to change, right? So one of the things we always get pulled into is the change management part. So I know with researchers, we're positioned as the people that will help researchers delve into digital skills, because we've got the platforms and all of those sorts of things, and we support them. So change management's a big one in terms of skill change, as in practice change, that libraries always get dragged into, and sometimes it's not appropriate. So it's a real, and it's one of those things where you have to reaffirm, what does a library actually do? And it's different in every institution. So the expectation of that for us is big. AI was a big one, but in a very different way. So one of the things our university was very keen on is being prepared for making sure that the production of research didn't slow down when AI came in. So answering all of those kind of, what should I look for in an author agreement? You know, what's my copyright implications here? That sort of stuff is the stuff that the library picked up quite a lot of. So we did a lot of work around making sure researchers could just research and didn't have to navigate all of this sort of questions around ethics and those sorts of things. So a lot of things like that are very interesting and bizarre. But the other point is, like, you've got to teach everyone how to use ChatGPT, and I'm like, no, I don't. No, it's not my job. No one teaches the general public how to use it. So anyway.
And do you get pushback on that? Have you found?
Yeah. But there's only so much money, so I'm like, I can only do what I can do. I've got no money. But it is sort of funny, because last time I did that, that's how we ended up with this Students as Partners program. Like, how did this end up with me? But it's been one of the best things we've ever done. So sometimes I surprise myself when I've said yes to things. But yeah, you do get some pushback. I push back. I'm very clear about what I do and don't do.
Simple guidelines. So I do want to leave some time for any questions from the room. So thinking about, final questions. And again, we've touched on, and you've shared multiple examples around kind of the use of AI, but is there anything that your institution's doing, specifically around kind of getting ready for careers and career preparation, where you're using how to use like AI literacy? And, from your viewpoints, are there any certain skills that you think need to be understood or developed, before, you set your students out into the world?
I think tie back to the career development, career preparations and career development, and how to nurture our students to have the lifelong skills is very important, because the AI technology evolve, change very rapidly. So today we teach them something, the know-how, and maybe tomorrow it change. So how to let them to be learning lifelong, and also how to, because AI is just the AI, the technologies, whether it make it good or whether it make it bad, it's the person who use them. So one of our goal is to, the university goal is to teach students to make the AIs in a good perspective, to make it good. So we come back, that is the critical thinking is one of the, even in the AI literacy framework, it's also very important. And the critical thinkings, and also the creative thinkings, and also resilience, it all match, and sympathy and active listening. It's all important, even in the AI literacy, the framework altogether. And when we pack it back to our local economy, that is in Hong Kong, we have a mini survey inside, that's graduate survey. That's in the last 3 years, in 2024, the students who need to apply for the jobs increase to from 15 increase to 18, but the job they get stay stable. So that each student has to spend more time and effort to apply and get the job. And from our employers' point of view in Hong Kong, they think that the technical certifications in AI tools and programming is the most important one. And then problem solving and critical thinking skills, number 2, and previous working experience or case studies, number 3. So we have to pack this all together to get them prepared. That's
our university has, every student has to do an internship. So whether it be paid or unpaid, they're required to do that to graduate. So we do a lot of work around getting them prepared to be out in the field a bit. So library does help quite a bit with because generally they're given fact-finding jobs when they go out. They go and do these sorts of things. So we do a lot of work around that sort of thing. We do a lot of work with our entrepreneurship area, so students who want to start their own businesses. So market research, those sorts of things. Half the time they don't know they have access to that content. I guess one of the pitfalls of all of it is when they go out into the real world and they graduate, they don't have access to these things. So that ends up being a tension that always exists. So, I can only do so much for you, but then you leave. So we're trying to look at what we do around that. In terms of university expectation, particularly around the library, they all got obsessed with prompt engineering for a while. Now, I think of it as dialogue, but free. Anyone who ever used dialogue? So you know what I'm talking about. Like, you had to spend a lot of time constructing a search and researching every term to get it to it, because you paid $1 a search. It was expensive. So it's sort of funny when you look at the evolution, and it goes kind of full circle, that actually good prompt engineering is actually good asking of a question that a librarian gets taught at library school. So it's not that different. So that's one of the big things that we've been asked to really get students being able to ask questions well of systems, and generally AI, but now increasingly more other things. But there's also been, actually the other thing that we're getting a lot of is very structured research, like systematic reviews has become a big thing for us. So, and there's a real big push in students understanding it, because they need to understand the process because when it's automated, they've got to understand how the question came out, like the answer, like how you got your answer. So there's been a big push on this sort of traditional research skills in some areas, even law. Like there's a big push on traditional law research in the context of AI makes it easy, but you've got to understand how much work goes into producing that answer, which is one of those things.
Thanks both. I know we wanted to leave a couple of minutes for questions, but a really broad spectrum of activities and initiatives that you're both doing at your institutions. And I think, Michael, you summarised it really well when you said it's about teaching them how to ask, better questions, deeper questions, the right questions. And that's something that can be transferred regardless of, which career path that they take. So thank you both for those insights. And I'll open it out to the room now if anyone has any questions that they'd like to pose to Lily or Michael.
Can someone use the app? I've not seen anyone ask a question on this app ever. Yeah.
Quick question. I guess you said a couple of times like what the library does and what the library doesn't do, right? And like having that line be definitive. And I guess the question for everybody in the room is this commonplace that you do a lot more career prep for students like coming out of the library? Because I feel like it's like at our institutions more in the individual schools than what the library is doing. So I'm just kind of curious if this is like a wide place or is this unique?
We do prep around library things, so okay. I don't actually go and teach them how to interview. That's a whole unit who does that. Interestingly enough, though, when I talked about being at the development end of things, we do a lot more with course development, and most of the course development is based on graduate attributes. So a student graduating from this subject will know how to do X, Y, Z. So then we come in at that, and then we work with them in how you'd support that. If there are any library things, what's the assessment for that going to look like? What are the sorts of resources we need to make available? Do we have all the collection that will support this, assessment activity or classroom activity? So we do a lot of work with that. That's what I mean when we talked about new audiences, because learning designers, this profession does this work, and then we work quite closely with them to make sure that there's an ecosystem around trying to support this career readiness stuff. But in terms of doing the direct stuff, less so. I've got some spaces stuff that sits in my remit, so there is a little bit of an onus on me to support some career readiness space things. So, all the wellbeing spaces. We do a whole bunch of stuff for neurodivergent students as well. So there's a whole load of things that's coming around the wellness and wellbeing side of things that sort of falls in my spaces remit.
We have the similar situations. That's the faculty will do some discipline specific career developments, such as the Faculty of Engineering. Have a lots of engineering, tech job interview, etc. But at the library, because we have the trend. One of the trend is interdisciplinary programs and collaborations. So the library will be the place for that. And we collaborate with different units to do so. We can't do it on our own because we're not the expert to do that. So we have more and more this kind of collaborations. And sometimes, and also the faculty levels one, they only open to the faculty, their students, but the other student cannot join. The library is the place, a trust place that everyone can join. We welcome everyone. So this is one of our selling points, maybe.
One of the areas that we actually do some direct support, I take a lot of placements. So I take a lot of student placements. Now, I am the one person, I'll outsource anything I can. I have a lot of HR problems. So I'd rather outsource. But actually, we made a conscious decision a few years ago that there are some jobs that will never be permanent. So we'll always have interns in them. So we do support quite a lot of internships, and even our partners program, they're all considered interns. So we pay them to actually work for us and do things. So that's been an interesting, different take on things. So, and actually interns who work in the library end up coming out they all say the same thing, that they learn how to communicate in a very broad way, like as in because of the amount of stakeholders that libraries have to manage. It's like every single one of them, that's the one thing they take away, because we do sort of exit interview every now and then, and they're like, oh no, communication, I learned how to write an email, I learned how to, negotiate, and do all those sorts of things with tricky academic staff, generally.
Thank you. Any other questions in the room?
So my question was, all the engagement that you do, did it mostly come from the libraries? Was it prompted from administration? If it wasn't prompted from administration, how did you get their buy-in? Did you get funding? Like, how would you, if you really wanted to implement something and you want to pitch it to the administration, do you have any advice?
This is a very good question. Sometimes we struggled with that because I think we are very proactive persons, so we want to provide proactive services. So sometimes, so far, our funding is okay now. So some of the initiatives is funded by the library, but it's not sustainable. So we will reach out to different faculties and to maybe sit for collaborations. If they find it useful to them, then they will collaborate with us. So our first, maybe the priority when we plan any initiative, we will think actually what can benefit to them, the students and their staff. If they really think that is something make them better, then they will collaborate with us.
It's a bit of both. So sometimes it will come top down and they'll say, we need this. I'm a firm believer that the library is generally the most functional unit in any university. I've worked at a few, and the library generally has its stuff sorted much better. So there is this sort of tendency to sort of say, well, the library can sort that out, so that becomes a bit of a thing you've got to manage. The partnering thing is actually really good because you can generally get a lot more buy-in if you're partnered with the faculty. The other thing is I don't ask for small amounts of money. Like, it's just a waste of everyone's time. So I'll ask for 10 million and not one. Because I'm like, well, and there's a lot of marketing to that, which is, I'm not just buying new computers, I'm doing a digital uplift. So, because you'll always at least get a quarter of it, So it's one of those things where you just sort of have to learn to play the game. But I've also been known to hold the university to ransom. So, I've always said, great, I'm not funded to do that. So there was a good example where we were dealing with read and publish agreements, and I was like, I could do all this publishing if you gave me $50,000, and they said no. And so I said, a year later, presented the data, and we were like, we came second last in the country. And we're like the 9th institution. So like that was our performance. And I was like, well, that's what you could have invested $50,000. And that led to a huge increase in funding immediately. So I sometimes will go, well, you'll miss out. Like I just don't break my back. But then I also like half the time will blow my budget, and you never get in trouble.
I think that's a great way to end the session.
It's true.
Thank you so much, Michael and Lily, and thank you everyone in the audience.